Okay, I got it recording, so you can switch back.
So you can keep it. All right.
Oh, we got 63. That's 10%.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's like taking a survey. If you get 10% back, that's good. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes and then I'll kick this off.
Sounds good.
Hi, Wayne Miller. You look comfortable there.
Yeah, you
So
know,
this is Pete Dassel.
everybody keeps
I'm not
saying
getting a
that
picture on the
we've
screen
done
of myself. There's something I'm not doing.
I just kind of set up on a recliner and I watch it on the big TV. So.
Oh, I've got 2 full pages of video. I switch back and forth between the 2 pages as it's all on.
Okay, we're looking like we got pretty stable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up meeting everybody. Basically, if we're going along.
How can you get it? So I can get this. Can you get it? By budget volume.
First, I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, now I got everybody muted. So now I'm not getting the background crosstalk. So if you want to talk and you're on a computer, all you have to do is put your finger on the space bar, push it down and hold it as you would like a microphone button. And you will temporarily come off of mute and you can make a comment. But this will keep the general background noise down. As you can tell, it dropped sufficiently when we muted everybody. We're going to run it this way unless we get into a situation where we've got a bunch open and then we'll go to another mode, but we won't discuss that mode if we don't have to. So with that, Al, go ahead and unmute yourself and on with the show.
Okay, well, great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I think we're up to 66 people, and I'm sure we're going to get quite a few more coming in the coming minutes. But yeah, I mean, you know, with all this stuff going on out there, the Zoom has really become very popular. A lot of clubs are doing it now, and we thought, hey, why don't we give it a try? And especially being just an online organization, we don't really have a chance to talk very often and get to know each other. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to have some discussions, show some photographs, put some names to some faces, and I think before we close the meeting, I'd like to have a short discussion about do we want to do this again, and how often do we think it'd be worthwhile getting together like this. So this seems like kind of the wave of the future. So it'd be a good opportunity for us to meet on occasion to share ideas face to face rather than sharing posts in a forum. So the whole idea is to keep this pretty informal. So if you got any comments, really just jump in anytime. We don't have a really long agenda. We do have a short show and tell that I thought we could start with. We'd like to get some feedback from you guys on the club and what we might do in the future to boost interest and participation, and just kind of go from there. So just general conversation. So any comments before we get started? All right. So I did ask everybody.
I ought to go over real quick. If you're on a computer, we're now got so many people on the screen. If you're on a computer and you put your mouse over the screen, you'll notice that there's now 2 arrows on each side of the screen if you're in gallery view that allows you to scroll between the various screens of all the people. And if you want to just focus on the speaker, if you go to the upper right-hand corner and click on on speaker view instead of gallery view, it will focus you right in on Al, and you get a much bigger picture, especially if the speaker's going to show you something. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Ron. So I thought we'd kick off with a short show and tell. We don't have a lot of submittals. If anybody has an item that you just didn't have a chance to take a photograph of, but you'd like to talk about, if you've got it in front of you at the end of the photographs that we'll talk about, if you want to jump in, you can just kind of put the piece in front of you on the camera, and we can talk about it. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Oops. So can everybody see that? Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Oh, we can see it.
Okay. All right, great. So what I'm going to do is ask the creator of the piece to jump on when your piece shows up and just talk about it. If you had questions, things you want feedback on, or if you just want to talk about your technique, whatever, just jump in and let us know what you'd like to talk about. So let's start with Pete. Pete, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, this is Pete. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. This is a bowl I cranked out about 2 weeks ago. My attempt at creating a bowl that had a dark wood on the outside and a contrasting lighter wood on the inside. And I had a devil of a time trying to get this thing to work. I worked on the smaller pieces. I call them prototypes, and finally came up with something that the wood was not bleeding through from one side to the other, which was certainly not very attractive from the goal that you had set for yourself. And so I wanted to show this. The downside is, while it's a decent looking bowl from a distance, this is a very heavy bowl. It's got a wall thickness of these two different woods that is pretty much approaching 1/2 inch in thickness, which is unbelievably thick for the average wood turner. And I'm asking, first of all, is there anybody out there that has worked on this problem, worked on this as a goal, creating a object here with basically an inside-outside contrasting woods? And if they have, I could talk with you personally about it, but I'm not happy with this real thickness, and there's maybe better ways to get down to something thinner. So that's it, Al. I actually had some stuff I wanted to show if people wanted what I did to make this thing happen. The details right now is that, is there any good examples of nice bowls using this technique that have thinner walls and a less heavy, chunky appearance?
Pete, just to be clear, so you actually turned two bowls with the same profile and you just put one inside the other?
No. I made basically a bowl that had each segment has the dark color on the outside, the fatter part of the segment, and the lighter color on the inside of the segment. And I use what Mr. Johnson calls a gray match. So that's basically how you do it. And I start off with these segments being about 1.5 inches thick, wide, the segment length being quite a bit longer than you normally would, and then start turning it down. That's the best way to describe it. Okay.
Okay.
Pete, I have a question. I'm assuming that when you made these laminations, you had equal parts of the dark wood and the light wood?
Wayne, what I do is I make long strips of laminated wood, 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch pieces, and then glue them together, and then start cutting out the segments using the grain match technique. If people don't know what that means, it's in the Bible, which is Tibbitz's book on page 36, that where he describes basically the two techniques. If you just do it, this back and forth, you're going to have the back of each piece will be oddball being light on one side and dark on the other, and back and forth. So it's using the other technique. A little more costly in terms of wood, but not a big deal.
Pete,
The reason I asked the question, Pete, was maybe a lot of arithmetic or actually drawing is that instead of having 3/4 and 3/4 in the lower rings, you might change that ratio and alter it ring by ring as you go up the side. It seems like a lot of work, but then you might be able to get a much thinner bowl that way.
Thank you for that.
Well-
Good suggestion.
I posted one maybe about 2 months ago. I had the same concept, mine twist. I've got 6 different species on the outside twisting one way, and 6 different species on the inside twisting the other way. And same thing, mine is about probably 3/8 of an inch thick overall. And I did ring by ring. I didn't turn 2 bowls and put one inside the other. I built each ring as I went along. But it's posted on my on our website, or on it's in the gallery.
The
Thank
other
you for
thing
that.
you might
I didn't
do-
see who was talking, just so if I need to follow through a little bit more, can you tell me who you were?
Kip Lockhart. Kip, K-I-P.
Pete, one thing you might consider is once you've designed this bowl, just the traditional way, you could go back and make a row for each ring, but make it all out of staves that are going to be, a height of the stave is going to be 3/4 of an inch or whatever it is. And if you keep that narrow enough, it's going to show you what the slope is of each of those staves. And once you know that, you can cut the wood, just cut the 2 pieces on your bandsaw at that edge, glue those together, and then the middle of that would kind of follow the profile. So if you'd like to see that, you could give me a call and I can show you how to do that.
Well, thank you very much for that idea, Lloyd. That's not a bad idea. The one thought I had going for me is the old classic: when you get finished, cut the bowl in half, and then look at the profile and see how close you came to it. But I like the idea that you can kind of follow a stain tracking to help you with that.
The other thing I did with mine, I don't have a solid rim around the top of mine. If you look at mine, you can actually see the joint all the way around and see the 2 different woods that don't match. So you can actually see the joint around the top of the edge. It's the glue joint.
Yes, I was trying to avoid that because I didn't want to give away my secret to the lay public who might have an interest in this.
Whoops.
Pete, did you turn each ring as you put them on, or did you stack the whole thing before you started turning?
Well, my technique is I always do the inside first, because that's it avoids having to reach into the bowl too much. So I build up the inside first. In this case, it's poplar. Get that pretty well smooth, take away the little diamonds. And then when it's all built up to the top, then I'll go out there and work on the Purple Heart and turn it that way. That's usually how I do most of my bowls.
I was just wondering if you turned each ring as you started, you'd be able to see where the separation between the light and the dark was.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And pay a little bit more attention to it at that point. Thank you.
Hey, Pete, I was wondering, did you think with your profile, like Lloyd's talking about the slope or the profile of your bowl, if it's consistent all the way from ring one all the way to the top, did you think maybe of doing a lamination with a bevel cut off your table saw and laminating the two boards together to get the pitch of the slope you want, and then create your rings that way if it's consistent all the way from bottom to top?
That's another good idea. That is one of the things that I learned, is that you pretty much need to have a fairly upright wall. You can see in here, there's not real wide coming out. So that's another way of approaching it. You can, but if you start getting a real wide on top and narrow at the bottom, it's even going to make this more and more difficult.
I was wondering about just changing the design some, like you're saying. It'd be a lot easier if it had vertical sides, so you could use this technique probably to make like a box with vertical sides. It might work pretty well, allow you to make thinner walls. Obviously, it wouldn't be a bowl then, but.
That's exactly right. And that was a little bit of disappointment, because I was looking for a little bit, rather than a vertical side, but more of a slanting, more classical style.
If you increase the number of segments per ring, you can make the wall thinner too.
Well, thank you for that. It just so happens, after I made this, and I went ahead and got a hold of Pete Market, and I now have one of his sleds and I'm working on a project with 20 segments. I've been in the business of making these segments. Every one for the last 10 years has been 12, because 12 is a nice number to work with. And I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle at home. I think
thinner rings too
we've
would help.
covered it. There's a lot of other guys, I'm sure, that are waiting in line here.
No. If there's other comments, we can keep on this. So, all right. Anything else, Pete? Looks like you got some good ideas to look into.
I have, and I appreciate those, and I'll be looking up at that bowl there with 2 months ago, that posting. I do have a personal question. I don't have my picture, and yet I have a camera laptop arrangement. Is there something I'm not doing? Usually when I join a Zoom meeting, you join first with the audio, then you get the video or something like that. It seemed like I just went in with just one this time.
Oh, your video isn't working? Lower left-hand corner, does it say start video? Do you have a red line through your video icon?
Yeah, actually, same thing happened to me today too.
We got you now, yeah. We've lost your audio though, Pete. You gotta hold your space bar down.
I do again. I keep forgetting that. That's so I appreciate it very much, and I'm anxious to see what others have to share.
All right.
Thank you again, Al, for doing this.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Let's move on then. Russ, take it away.
Wow.
Okay, well, I posted this a while ago, and if you watch some of my comments when I'm commenting on people's work in the gallery, I always talk about contrast and pieces of wood that should go together and shouldn't go together, and over time things fade all the time. So what I have is I don't see myself. I see Andy. Hold on one second.
We see you, Russ.
Okay. Well, then I'll. So here it is. This is probably 3 years later. I can't see if you can see it, but what you can see is the colors have all faded into one.
Russ, we can see
Hold it a little higher.
How's that?
Keep talking. If you don't talk, we don't see you.
Yeah, okay, so all the colors just faded right into one color. This is, you know, I was trying to do a color blend. The orange that you see in the bowl is a Pernambuco, I think is the name of it. And it just blended right into the, I think the other one is a, holy moly. It blended right into the other color. And so this is like I walk by this every day and look at it. And it's like a reoccurring, like a bad dream when I see it, right? So I like to point that out to people, to be careful about the wood you use, because over time they'll change color, and all of a sudden what you wanted is gone. So that's why I was trying to show this piece.
That's fantastic, Ross.
What were those two woods again, Ross? That were
One is, you know, I saw Malcolm did a beautiful piece, a beautiful orange piece and it was used with Pernambuco, right? And it was such a cool piece. I think he used some black outlining the segments and then the bright orange wood. And I found a piece of it, so I bought it, and it looked great when it was fresh. But it's sort of like maybe the Padauk syndrome, right? Where after a little bit of time, it's all of a sudden it's blah, right? So anyway, I just think it's important when you're selecting your wood to actually, you know, pay attention to contrast and things like that, because over time they're going to change color and some things will get lost. I think Art just posted a piece today, and I mentioned that maybe you put a white ring in between a walnut and a bloodwood, because several years from now, those two woods might look pretty close to the same as they fade. So that's the reason I posted that, just to reinforce that.
Yeah, that was a good comment, Russ. I like that idea. As I replied, I probably use that sometime in the future.
Actually, yeah, again, it's just a little detail that ensures the longevity of your work, really.
Hey, Russ.
Russ, Doug Drury here.
Hey, Doug.
Do you know of any resource, or does anybody out there know of a resource that shows what color a wood would be when it's first milled, and then what color it's going to change to over time?
Well, the only place I've ever seen anything like that is our president, Al, did a study on that, and where did we see that, Al? Did you have that in St. Louis?
Yeah, I think I had that in St. Louis, and Doug, I've never seen anything like that posted online, but it's something for the same reason Russ is talking about. I had some early pieces that, you know, I look at them now and I can't tell what woods they are anymore. And so I got curious on what woods change and what do they change to. And it's actually a pretty easy test. You can do it. It'll take a couple of months, but I took a couple of pieces of wood or just different varieties of wood, glued them onto a backer, and put tape over half of it, put it in a window that's facing south, you know, so it's got full sun all day long. And over a course of 3 to 4 months, it's probably simulating, you know, years in a display cabinet. And you'll be amazed at the changes you'll see on certain woods. So, you know, if there's certain woods you like to work with, it'd be a worthwhile, you know, just taking a couple of months and just take a scrap piece of wood and put it in a window and see what happens to it.
Hey, Russ.
Thanks, Al.
Yep.
Have you thought about maybe using a UV, you know, protective type finish to maybe help with the, you know, the color change over time?
Well, again, you know, one of the interesting things about this, the issue I had on this bowl is it snuck up on me. So this was really my original problem with this. Not to, you know, most of the pieces I've ever made they're owned by somebody else, so it's their problem. But this one happened to stick around, and it's like a nag, right? I see it all the time now. If I put a UV I don't know what that would be actually. This thing had lacquer on it, spray lacquer. It was an it's an open segment piece, so I used a rattle can to put the finish on it, just so maybe it would get in between the. It's got some pretty fine cracks in it, gaps in it.
Yeah.
So
So
as far as what I really need to do is I need to talk to Pete. Oh, I am talking to Pete about finishes because he's the maestro for that.
I'll just jump in with a comment too, at least from my personal observation, because I was also curious about that. I mean, you can buy these marine grade exterior spar varnishes, and they all have UV inhibitors in them. So I took some pieces of wood and painted or put a couple of coats of varnish on one half and some coats of spar varnish on the other half, and did the same thing, put it in a window and saw it to see what happens. And to be honest with you, I saw no difference. They both change color at about the equal rate.
You have to realize it's oxidizing. So it's not just the light. The oxygen will do the job too.
Well, Russ, you could always box it up and ship it to me and I'll dispose of it for you.
You know how many times I thought about sending a piece over to you, Pete, to finish it for me? What is that? What do you charge? 20, 25 bucks?
Yeah, $500 an hour.
Hey, Russ, where did you get your Pernambuco?
I got it at Eisenbrand Woods. It's a little place. I was surprised. It's like 3 blocks from my house, but it's like an internet place, right?
Well, that stuff is going to extinct.
Oh, well, I have a huge chunk of it. If you guys want to start bidding for it.
That's what they make violin bows out of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I still got a big chunk of it. I haven't used it again after I saw this.
It's
one of the
very
things,
hard.
Kudos to Malcolm, because, if I took that wood and I actually surrounded it in black veneer, it may still look orange, right? But who knows?
So Russ, could you just sand that down and get the color back to where it was? Sand it down, refinish it?
Yeah, I could, but I'm beyond that now, right? So that piece has been that's been archived, right?
I know how you feel. It's pretty hard to go back.
Yeah, you got to move on to the next one, right?
Yep.
So,
has anyone tried using dye?
Yeah, I haven't tried coloring it. That might be an interesting touch. I guess you'd have to, with the seal on it, I could probably apply some color to that, or maybe bring something back to that. You're right about that. Was that Jerry?
Yeah, what I was thinking about is dyeing the segments before you put them together.
Oh,
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
With pressure.
Yeah.
It'll fade also. I guarantee it'll fade also.
Well, if you use aniline dyes, I mean, those things are not color fast at all. But if you use some of these metal reactive dyes like TransTint, I think those are pretty good from what I've read.
I don't think they're any better than the color of the wood. They will still fade.
Will they go deep enough that you can, finish, turn, and sand it?
Yeah, if you think about my piece, these segments were, they're narrow, but they're long, so they're like 3/4 of an inch long, and of course, obviously, they get bigger as you go up the diameter. But I would think that it'd be difficult to get the color all the way through them.
The dye will only dye the surface. It will not penetrate. I guarantee you. I've done that, and I got a piece I'll show you at the end. Let's go on with the other pieces first.
You just did one like that, didn't you, Andy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, where I got the idea was you see all kinds of pen blanks that are infused with dyes, and people turn them and they're still red all the way through and all of that. So they're probably using a pressure pot.
Yeah, I'm wondering if a pressure pot would help.
Well,
anybody tried that?
Like I said, I'll talk about that later.
Okay. All right.
I've been playing with some different dyes and pressure pots and so on, and trying to get the dye to penetrate through. I find if you're doing veneers or anything up to about a 32nd of an inch, you can get penetration all the way through. But you go much more over that, and it doesn't get penetrated all the way through. You have to remember that when these guys are doing the pen blanks and so on, a lot of them are using pressure pots that go up to, say, 60,000 pounds. Well, I think that's way beyond the capability of most of us in our home.
Like I said, I got something that I can show you later.
Okay. Looking forward.
All right. Well, we'll move on then, and we'll come back to Andy at the end of the slideshow. Oh, speaking of Andy, there you go. Unmute yourself, Andy.
Is Tom Lohman here? I guess he didn't sign in, huh? Well,
Yeah.
2 years ago, at the symposium, I picked up his technique using that, what is it called, 80-20 aluminum guide, whatever you call it. He set up. So I came home, I made one of those things, and I started building this. And the feature ring has 72 segments per ring. And the rest of it is 36 segments per ring. And the backdrop is mesquite. The butterfly body and the antennae are Cerakote. The outer edge of the wings is bloodwood, and the majority of the wings is cherry, and the middle one dots are Purple Heart. And Purple Heart is one of those woods that's hard to keep the color. And took me about a year to build this one. I don't know how Russ does his work. So I was, this is the only one I've made, and I'm very frustrated. And that's only 72 segments per ring. So any comments is welcome.
Well, it looks great, Andy. If you look at my work close, you're probably much more meticulous than I am. So that's probably why it takes you longer.
No.
Yeah.
No, I've looked at your pieces in the gallery. I picked them up. They look great.
Well, no, I'm not saying they don't look good, but I mean, you can spend a lot of time trying to set. What I realized early on using that jig is that you just want to get tight joints. You don't have to worry about trying to align the inside and the outside, because if your segment's thick enough, you're just going to turn that off anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't spend a lot of time trying to perfect the outside diameter of 144 segments being perfectly aligned. And if you get hung up on that, you can spend a long time gluing up a row.
No, I tried. I didn't do that, but still it took me forever to build this one.
Well, again, you're a very meticulous man. That's why your work always looks. Look at the form on that piece. Look at the form on any of my pieces. Look at that piece. That's outstanding. That's a beautiful form. Really.
Thank you very much.
A question. Did you have to build that kind of turn that as two pieces, a top and a bottom, and then join them? Or were you able to do it all as a hollow form?
I think I did this all the way up. I didn't have to do two halves because this is simple. I mean, the backdrop is just one kind of wood.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so I did it all the way from the bottom to top. And the mesquite is so nice. It just doesn't move at all. And for those who don't know what I do, I don't use one piece of wood for the bottom. I usually, almost always, use 4 pieces for the bottom. And you know it's going to crack. And I know it's going to crack. But I don't care. I think it's segmented. It needs to be segmented all the way. And if you use one piece of wood for the bottom, the orientation is not quite right with the rest of it. So, but when you use mesquite like this one, it's been about a year since I finished this one now. There's no gap whatsoever between those 4 pieces in the bottom. Love mesquite.
Do you have an issue with?
Turn it as you build it up?
No, no. Well, I did the ring. I did the feature ring, built it, and didn't turn it. I just flat chewed up the top and the bottom before I glued it onto the rest of it. And one more thing, I really like the setting off the ring. So I have, like, if I have white or light color ring, feature ring, I put a dark line there, and then I add another light color ring to set it off from the darker backdrop. And none of that is a veneer. Every single layer is segmented.
You know,
just generally, if
black lines, but my other question, I don't think you heard me. You don't ever do floating.
I've done one time a few years back. I didn't like it. I mean, I don't care whether the bottom cracks or not. That's just wood. If you don't like it, I can do corian. It won't show that.
Just generally talking about those thin veneer lines, or I call them veneer because they're thin like veneer.
Right.
But you cut them, you know, make a regular ring and slice the section off and thin it down like that. But
yeah,
to me, that's just that's a little detail like that just makes magic on a piece, right?
Well,
the
thing with commercial veneer is you're limited to the thickness that you can buy. With this, the way I do it, I can make that veneer any thickness I want.
Yep.
This is thicker than what you can buy. This is about 1/16 of an inch or 1/32. And what you buy is not that thickness.
But you look how that just sets that off. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. Plus, I'll show you another piece later on. If you have an angle, then your thickness is going to change, right? I mean, it'll appear to be different in thickness. So if you cut your own veneer, you can make adjustment to compensate for that.
I have seen this piece in person, and it is astounding.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah. What's the size, Andy? Hard to tell.
It's almost 12 inches tall, about 11 3/4 of inch tall, and 8-inch diameter.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you get the straight sides on the butterfly's body? If the segments are laid brick style.
No, they're not. That's all custom cut and made with that jig. With Tom's jig, you can do anything really, but you could probably tell that the body is not quite straight. It's a little bit difficult to, if they're staggered, it's easier to hide the inaccuracy, but when they're all lined up, it's very difficult to control that.
So some segments are different lengths than others.
Exactly. Yeah, well, like the antennae, they're all cut smaller, and then filled up with the maple.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You talk about a jig. Could you tell us a little more on what you're talking about there?
Actually, I can show it to you later. Once we get out of this slideshow, I can show it to you. It was invented by Tom Lohman, and he was going to teach a class at Mark Adams.
Mark Adams.
Did you know that if that was canceled?
The class was in, I think, March or April, so I suspect it was.
Yeah, I think it was May, early May or something.
The class was actually, Andy, it was in third week in April. And because of the pandemic, it was postponed. And right now I talked to Mark Adams about the restructuring of the class, and he's trying to work out with all the demonstrators that had all their classes delayed as to when, like, Tom may be able to get his class continued this year sometime for that session.
Well, if you're interested in this type of work, which is a lot of work, I guarantee you, but if you're really interested, I would, and if he still got vacancy in that class, I would sign up for it. Not only will you be able to learn the technique with a few more dollars, you can he will let you have the jig too.
Yeah, I think his class comes with a jig. That's what's nice about his class.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that was.
No, the
He's
class.
He's charging extra for the jig.
That's
I thought he was giving one out.
Tom has shown this at the AEW symposiums and at the segment of Winter Symposium. And he also has videos on his website about it. So there's a lot out there to find.
We lost you. We lost your audio, Art.
Oh, I said that Tom has shown this at the AEW symposiums and also our symposiums, and he has videos on his website. So there's a lot of information out there that you can learn how to use the jig and see how it does before you buy it.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a great jig.
A lot of work. Just be prepared for that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. You got to be slow and careful about it. But the results.
Yeah, I'll check into this website, see if I can figure it out. Thank you.
Are you talking about the indexing jig that he has on his website?
Well,
the segmented jig on his website. He has the videos there how he uses it.
It's the indexing jig.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I built this after the piece presentation in St. Louis 2 years ago.
Yeah, I talked to Tom a lot, and I bought one of his indexing wheels. And
no, I'm not talking about the indexing wheels. I'm talking about the rest of it, the aluminum part.
Oh yeah, well, I built mine out of wood, but following his original design, but it works just as well.
Okay. Well, should we move on?
Please.
We just lost Andy. Gene.
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
I've displayed 4 bowls. I think about the stability, long-term life expectancy of the bottoms of these bowls. Most of the pieces are glued together along edge grain, but not entirely. So more of a question than anything else.
I don't think we heard your question.
Can you hear me now, Art or Al?
Yeah, we can hear you, Gene.
Okay, so my question is, what does the jury here think about the long-term longevity of the bottoms of these bowls? Are they going to crack? Or if kept in a reasonable humidity, will they last a long time? What do you think?
Well, for my sake, every time I see you post one, I think they're beautiful, but I don't understand how you keep them from blowing up. So are they real thin? Do you do something special?
I'd say the bottoms are less than a ½ inch, probably 3/8. Some places, some of them might be more. I'm not a real thin person.
How long have you had these bowls, Gene?
Keep forgetting to press the space bar. Only one resides in my home, and that is the one on the upper right. And the others are at grandkids, or not grandkids, but children, and my brother-in-law. And so I don't know what their status is right now. The lower right star bowl went to Texas last November and haven't heard any problems on any of them.
Gene, I've done similar arrangements, and what I do is I make the pattern very thin, probably less than 3/16, and I laminate that on some very stable plywood that I get from Woodcraft, some like Baltic birch, and the two sandwiched together forms a very stable sandwich.
I did a couple of bowls like this with stars in the bottom when I first started segmenting, which is like 12, 14 years ago. And I still have them. One of them separated a little bit and the other one never has. And they were both, I didn't know much about thicknesses or anything at that time, so they were probably thicker than they should have been. But as I say, one of them was fine, the other one has some cracks. And I've never done it since because I didn't like the fact that it has a potential to crack.
Thanks.
Art, I've had the same experience. Years ago, I did a couple of these, and there's just so much cross grain that none of the bottoms on the pieces I made have failed, but I can tell what time of year I made them because in the winter they're solid, and in the summer they look like a strainer. So there's just cracks all over the bottom that you can see light through. So I tend to stay away from them.
Generally on bottoms like that, if they're smaller, they'll work better.
Mm-hmm.
The larger they get, the worse they are. And also, as was suggested earlier, if you laminate it, it has a lot better chance of survival.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
The one in the upper left corner will probably never come apart. The others may. But you can make a successful bottom that won't crack, but you have to take into consideration the properties of the material because it's going to move, and the larger it is, the more it moves and the more likely it is to crack. But I made some very successful bottoms using some untraditional techniques that have survived for many, many years without cracking, and they're segmented. But the trick is to keep that bottom as small as you can and eliminate it if you can.
When I first started
about the floating bases and all the other things that he was doing, but he likes to do segmented. Almost everything I do has a base that's probably 3 inches or less in diameter when it's done. And I've always just used a solid piece and never had an issue. I've never done a floating base.
When I first started segmenting, I did some pie-shaped bases like this. And the very first one I did, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I ended up bricklaying a second base underneath it. So I ended up with the two pieces bricklayed and then coming together in a pie shape. That one is held together. The other ones I've done, I can't say the same. When I was in St. Louis, Robin Castilli told me about his floating or his domed base that he does. And I've done some pieces with that dome base and the segmented bottom. And so far, all of those have held together just fine. So that might be another alternative to look at, is the domed base, and kind of build that right into the design of the bowl.
I recently saw the dome example and somebody pointed out Robin's, and I've taken a look at that. So that may be a future way to go.
Thanks, Al.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Gene. All right, this is the last one. This was actually a collaboration with my wife, Brenda. She's really gotten into basket illusion. And so her and I have done a few things where, you know, I've turned some things and then she does all the design and the coloring. And the reason I wanted to show this was the first time I did a segmented basket illusion. The one thing I didn't like about it was the fact that if you looked really close, you could see segment lines in those little tiny squares. So when I did this one, I was a little bit more precise about it, and I know a number of people in our club are doing this. So I just thought I'd share what I've done. When I lay out my my rings now, I use a 1/8 inch beading tool to do this. So when I lay out my segments, I make sure they're exactly 0.75 inches, so that as I'm doing my beads, the horizontal beads all line up and cover the horizontal lines of the segmentation. And the vertical lines, in this particular case, it's 16 segments per row. And what I did was make sure that I used a multiple of 16 for the horizontal lines or the vertical lines. So this one has 96. And so if you lay out your segments very precisely, you can hide every single glue joint in one of those burned beads, and you can't tell that it's segmented. So just kind of something I tried. It worked really well, and as we do more segmented pieces like this, I'll do the exact same thing because it kind of improved the visual look of it a little bit.
Yeah, I think your vertical burned lines lining up with the segments above, it's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a nice exactness to the piece.
Yeah.
Hey, Al.
Yeah.
When you dyed the top part of the curly maple there, did you put a coat of sanding sealer on before your dye?
I did not. No.
Turned out wonderful looking.
Yeah, it was dyed green first, and then I sanded it back, and then I dyed it blue. So it's blue with some green tints. All right. All right. Well, thanks.
Is that ebony?
That is ebony, yes. Yeah, so it's ebony and curly maple.
That is a very nice piece, Al.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Jerry.
Hey, why doesn't Brenda talk about it?
I don't know. Is Brenda still on the line?
Wake her up.
I'll wake her up. Yeah. It's past 8 o'clock. I think she's done. All right.
What kind of wood's under the coloring there? Is that maple as well? Oh.
That's just maple. Yeah, just cheaper maple.
It burns pretty well, but it looks
yeah,
like
it does.
Nice and black. Oh.
Yep. Yeah, burned real well.
What kind of finish do you have on top?
On top, that was a Minwax wipe-on poly. And the bottom, I didn't want to be gloss. Oops. So that is a spray matte Krylon acrylic finish. So it's a pretty, it provides protection, but it's a matte finish. So it's, at least I thought it gave a nice contrast. Okay.
That's a beautiful piece, Al. I like that piece a lot.
Thanks, Rust. Gene told me he wanted to talk about his bottoms, so I dug up a photograph that I had. The slideshow is done now. So I just want to show one other photograph of the dangers of like pie bottoms and stuff. I happen to collect Beads of Courage boxes for our local club, and a couple of years ago, one of my club members gave me a box of segmented boxes and said, you know, here, these are all donated for Beads of Courage. I never bothered to open up the box. I put it in my basement for about 6 months where the humidity is fairly high. And when I opened up the box, if I can find the photograph, that's what I found. Okay.
Ouch.
So again, just showing what can happen with changes in humidity when you use, you know, long segments that are together in a pie shape.
Those lids have no protection from other layers.
Nope, they don't. That was just one layer of wood.
And the plug in the middle doesn't help it.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, that plug there is just about ready to pop out. It was very loose. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing. And we can go back. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought we had some great discussion. Thought it was fun. All right.
Here's a Tom Lohman jig if anybody wanted to see one.
Good. I was going to show mine, but it's the same thing.
So it's changed my life having one of these. I never have to go inside anymore. So.
All right. Andy, you had something you wanted to show? I think something with dyes?
Yeah, I have a bowl here.
Yep.
All the rug patterns are dyed maple. And earlier on, we had discussion over dyeing wood. Not all the woods will dye properly. And I was trying to make walnut darker. Walnut does not dye very well. And I was trying to, I had a piece of mesquite that was really dark already, as dark as walnut. So I tried to dye it. The dye only stayed on the surface, never penetrated. So obviously, with what I have here, I can't dye it afterwards. I had to make sure that the dye penetrates all the way throughout the wood, because I have to turn it. So what I did was I started with vacuum. I put these pieces of wood in the vacuum, in the dye bath, and I put in a vacuum chamber. My vacuum chamber is actually a pressure pot that I made a lid for it so I could pull vacuum on it. So I evacuate the air until there are no bubbles coming out. Then I release the pressure for the vacuum. The dye penetrates. Well, the first time I did that, it was not dark enough. So I said, well, maybe if I pressurize it, it'll help. And this is the end result. So it's still not as intense as the surface of the wood, but it's dark enough. And I don't know if you can see it or not, there's difference in color here. Like green color here, it's darker on the top and the bottom. That's actually chatoyance. So if you rotate it, you'll see the color change. So it's almost impossible to try to make all the pieces of the same color with the same intensity, because if you orient your wood not the same way, the color will change. So, and here is something else that I was talking about, veneer, because this is, right here, this is at an angle. So it'll appear wider or thicker. And in this case, I can cut this thinner, where this will stay, it's almost vertical here, and it'll stay the same thickness. So I cut these veneers at different thicknesses to make them appear the same when you look at the final piece. Anyway, that's what I want to talk about. I have this piece I have posted on the website.
Andy, the pieces that you dyed there, were those individual segments, or were they strips of wood?
No, there were strips. My pressure pot is about 10 inches in diameter. So I made these troughs that will fit in there, and these troughs will only be able to hold pieces 8 inches long. So I made them 8 inches long, 1/8 inch thick, the pieces of maple, and then 5/8 inch wide. And I think you would have problem if you try to impregnate real thick wood. It just won't. I don't know if very, very high pressure is going to work or not, but it's not available to me anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I had this design. I had this design in mind, and so I figured each piece is going to be about 1/8 inch thick or slightly thinner. So I cut the strips into 1/8 inch thick and 5/8 inch diameter width and 8 inches long. It's a tedious process because you can't do that many of them at a time.
Andy, were you using cactus juice, or are you just putting the dye in without a resin?
No. This is just dye in water, and also you have to use something. You can't use like alcohol-based dye. You have to use water-based dye, because otherwise, with the high vacuum, my vacuum pump will pull down to about 30. So all that alcohol is going to boil. So you have to use water-based. And even then, water will boil too. And so it'll ruin your pump. Am I okay? I can't see anything here. I don't see anything on the screen. Hello? Hello?
Andy, what type of dye?
Started sharing that should be shared.
JD George?
I use something called Transfast. I got it from Klingsport. I think probably TransTint will work too, but I just happen to have bought this thing from Klingsport. And also, the green dye was Transfast, but the yellow and red were actually food coloring. I just had them available to me. My wife says, "Oh, I don't use this anymore. Why don't you take it?" So I tried it out. It worked.
Okay. You said that your maple was 5/8 inch wide.
Yeah.
And how thick would that have been?
1/8 inch thick.
1/8.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try that again. I tried that with alcohol dye, the same method that you did with the vacuum and then pressure. And I ran into the same problem in that the alcohol started boiling. And so I tried the vacuum down, and I didn't get the penetration I wanted. So yeah, I'll give this another.
And even if you use, well, you know, the water will vaporize, especially under low pressure, right? So it'll end up in your oil, in your pump. If you use the gas pump, that doesn't use oil, doesn't pull enough vacuum. You have to use pump that uses oil. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't trap that moisture, you're gonna have to replace the oil more often. So actually, I made a vapor trap. I think I got it. Let me show you. You see me? Can you see this?
Yep.
This is a vapor trap. And then I have the silica gel on the inside filled in. And I put this on top of my pressure pot. So the moisture gets trapped in here.
Yeah, that's a good idea, using the
Does that make
silica
sense?
gel.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So when I don't know if you can see this, this is blue inside. When it turns pink, you open it up. See, this is sealed on this end. This end is threaded, so I can dump it out and regenerate it. And turn it, once it turns blue, I can put it back in there and reuse it. So this is just a piece of PVC pipe. And being a Corian guy, this cap is Corian here. And this is a piece of bluesite or acrylic. So I could see the color change.
Okay,
For
looks
your
good. Thanks, Ed.
alcohol, sorry, for your alcohol dyes, could you use pressure instead of vacuum? Would that work? I guess I'm not familiar with.
I don't think you can put enough pressure on there. I can't. Yeah, my pressure pot, I think has a maximum of 80 pounds, and I don't think that's enough to pressurize it. And besides, I think vacuum is a lot more efficient because you got air in there. If you could displace the air with the dye, it'll be more efficient instead of compressing all the air into the cell, right? So.
Yeah, sure. I guess I've never tried it. But
That's exactly why it works better. You have to get rid of the air in the material before you can allow the dye to go back in.
Right. Well, you could if you use extremely high pressure, I suppose, but that's just not available to us, to me anyway.
What do you mean when you say extremely high? How high do you need to go? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
30,000. They use 30,000 psi when they make
30?
those pen blanks. 30,000. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
PSI?
Yeah, my pressure pot only goes to 60. I tried it with my pot and with the alcohol dye, and still didn't get the penetration.
What about using like a really porous wood like red oak, you know, that almost acts like a straw?
No, it doesn't work. Actually, that's what I tried first. Before I tried any of vacuum or pressure, it'll suck it up through the pores, but it doesn't go into the cells. And like I said, even like walnut, which is pretty porous, when I put it in black dye, try to make it really dark, it didn't work. It just stays on the surface. It doesn't go inside. So there's something magical about maple. It works great.
Do you use a soft
I
maple?
tried some aspen, and I had a bit of success with aspen. Spruce, which I thought would really soak it up, and cedar, which are both pretty soft, they were both horrible. I had very little penetration with either one of them. So I think it's just a matter, you just have to play and experiment.
But don't even bother with mesquite or walnut because it just won't work. I tried it. I mean, dark outside was jet black. It's like blackwood, but inside it's still brown. Any more questions or comments?
Did you use a softer maple?
No, this is actually a hard maple. This is not soft maple. I don't know if soft maple would work better or worse. I have no idea.
That's a beautiful piece, Andy. I loved it when I saw it in the gallery. It looks even better you holding it.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's painful. It took me about 3 months to make it. Took about a month just to dye the wood.
No, it was worth it. It's a nice looking vessel. I like the colors. They really pop on there and makes it look really,
Thanks.
really
Yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, the nice thing is you can use dyes that you can't find green wood, right? And here you create your own color, your own color wood.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to be building a vapor trap.
It's fun. I mean, I enjoy tinkering with this kind of stuff. So, and I used to work in the lab. It gave me an idea because we used to use what's called ultracentrifuges. They spin at about 100,000 RPM, so it generates heat. So you have to pull the vacuum. In fact, they have two-stage vacuum pump in there, one regular oil vacuum pump, then a diffusion pump. And if you don't, in there, they put a vapor trap. And if you don't do that, you have to change the oil a lot more frequently. The oil, I mean, water is just not good for the pump. Yeah, you can see that when it turns pink, you just dump it out, put another batch in there, and heat this, the spent silica gel in the oven. It'll turn blue again, so you can reuse it.
That was very interesting, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And building that ring was another challenge because all these pieces were cut at an angle, right? So when you glue them together, they have a tendency to slide over each other. So that was a pain. Remember 2 years ago at the symposium, Franklin representative was giving out a lot of free glue, and he had this, what was it called? Thick and fast, wasn't it?
It's thick
and quick. Thick and quick.
Yeah, so I used that one because then you can hold it for just a few minutes. It'll stick together.
I was just thinking, you said you used water-based dyes. Did you have any problem with bleed through from the water and the glues?
Well, actually, that was that I thought when I glued the pieces together, it started leaching out actually. So it wasn't too bad. You really can't tell. So I was more concerned about what I put the finishing on there. Well, if you look at this, the maple is very, very light color here. There's no amber hue to it because I use this water-based polyurethane. It's absolutely clear. I mean, it comes out of a bottle milky white, but when it dries, it's clear. So I was more concerned about when I applied the water-based finish on there, I might cause the color to bleach out or to leach out and smear. And so I tried the inside. Well, actually, so I tried an airbrush, but my airbrush just doesn't have enough output to cover it. So I said, oh heck, I got two sides. I'm going to try the inside first. And if it smears, then I'll think of something else. And turned out it was okay. It didn't cause any problem. So the outside, I just started applying that water-based poly on there.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
That's actually a pretty nice tip there. You got the inside to try something on. It'd be hard to see. It's a good idea, really.
That type on Thick and Quick is the only glue that I use when I'm working on my segmented work.
Don't you think it sets up too fast on you? I mean, how many segments do you have in the ring?
I've gone up to 96 and it works fine, so I'm happy with it.
Really? Huh.
You're adding one segment at a time, though, presumably, Bob, are you, with yours?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I'm working one segment at a time, and or if I'm working on a completed ring around the top, I'm still using the same glue, but it sets up quick enough that I don't have to worry about pieces moving on me or anything like that. So I'm really happy with it.
That's good.
Yeah, the fact that it dries clear is also a real plus when you're talking about open segment work. No cleanup between the segments.
Right.
Yeah, it dries almost as clear as translucent.
Well, I built furniture before I started doing wood turning. I just used Elmer's glue all, and that dries clear too. And I furniture built 40 years ago hasn't fallen apart yet.
Well, Andy, you use a lot of Corian. That is the Thick and Quick is also a multi-purpose, so it's not just strictly a wood glue. So you might want to try and see how it works with Corian.
Interesting. Thanks for the tip. Thanks for the platform. That's all I got to say.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Andy. I guess I'm going to suggest we move on. I'd like to turn it over to Bob and then Russ for a few minutes. Now Bob, as you know, has been our webmaster for a number of years, and he, I think, wants to just get a little bit of feedback on the website, if there's anything, any comments you guys have. So Bob, take it away.
Okay, the website, actually the forum, we've just recently changed the software. Well, not changed, but we updated it. And there's been a few little glitches along the way, and I've been working through those, but everything really moved along very well. We do have a 3-day trial for new members where if you register for the forum, you can see the posts that everybody makes, but you physically can't post yourself. And you have availability to look at the media. It's pretty much a carrot on the stick for the people that are interested, and hopefully we can get some more members that way. I've posted that also on our Facebook page, and I'm going to end up putting that on our Instagram page. I don't know if anybody has any suggestions or any gripes or anything as far as what is on the forum or how I can help improve that, but go ahead and hit me with it.
Bob, Doug Drury here. In going back through some older posts, I find oftentimes guys will put links in the post and so on, and they're often links to other things that are supposedly somewhere on the site, but those links aren't working. Now, is that something that's going to be corrected? Do you want us to shoot you an email when we find something like that? Or is that something that just the old forum and the new forum just aren't compatible and we can't get those links back?
If you've got a link, send it to me. I will run it down and see if I can find it. There may be something that has been deleted so it doesn't show up again, but send me the link and we'll see what I can do.
Okay, when I find those, I'll let you know. When I've sent you enough that I'm driving you crazy, let me.
Well, I put up with Russ all the time, so you can't be any worse than him.
Bob's gone crazy. Don't worry about that.
I guess on that note, I'll turn it over to you, Russ.
Okay, I'll start the crazy part of the program. So, you know, as I can't remember how long I've been a board member, but you know, trying to get activity on the website's always been a challenge for the board. And it seems like with the COVID-19 lockdown, we've gotten a lot more participation. and I got to be honest with you, it's just absolutely refreshing to see more people commenting and you know, participating. It makes for a way more interesting site. And so, you know, while we got a lot of members here, if anybody can come up with an idea about something that might interest them, or something that maybe we can do that'll increase the participation. We're always going to have people that just watch, and it's always refreshing to have people participate. So I think the last club challenge that we had, how many people did we have, Al? We tried to make the rules of the challenge, hey, turn anything, right? Almost segment anything. And people are posting things, but it never got submitted as part of the challenge. So, you know, you might have noticed that you haven't seen a challenge in a while, because it's pretty challenging to put one on because nobody's participating, right? So, you know, I racked my brain trying to think of things, and you know, I can only come up with I don't know what anybody would think about. Maybe we have a hardwood exchange program, right? Maybe somebody's looking for something and they can put a request out, and maybe somebody can help them with that. Or even better, how about I need a ring of something? I need a segmented ring with 12 segments. You know, maybe somebody can, if they've got the wood, they can help a brother out by making a ring for him. And, you know, we just kind of share the wealth that way, and everybody, you know, again, it's something that helps increase, you know, people participating. Any ideas would be great, because you know, it's really our website, and so you know, I learned a long time ago, participation has made a world of difference to me. And you know, if anybody has any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Right?
Russ, why don't you do an outrageous challenge?
An outrageous challenge? That'd be a great one.
Nothing conventional. It has to be totally outrageous.
This is Jerry Bennett talking, you realize.
Right, right.
Russ, one of the things we sometimes do locally, which means a lot of shipping and freight, is a collaborative project. We've actually seen where somebody might make a ring and a base, and then put it in the mail, and somebody adds something else.
I mean, both of those are great ideas. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for, right? And if anybody hears that and says, "Hey, we'd love to participate," and you know, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for, right?
Well, at the GCWA several years ago, we did a challenge like the outrageous thing.
Right.
You couldn't do anything conventional, but people learned a lot from that because they had to get out of their comfort zone and do something different. And it was really comical to see the different things that people come up with.
Now, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like it'd be a lot of fun too. Anybody sound like they'd be interested in that?
Definitely.
I'd work on something like that.
I'm in. I want to know who's going to decide how outrageous is outrageous.
Well, again, I mean, we can put it up for a vote. I mean, you know, we can make it anything like that. I'm pretty sure, you know, outrageous is outrageous. Your outrageous maybe not be outrageous to Jerry, right?
The thing is that you can have no limitations.
Okay. All's fair in love and war, huh?
That's right. And you'll learn a lot more if you have no limitations and you have to get it off of the path and into the weeds.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great idea.
I like it too. Ross, I need 30 rings of Pernambuco. Can you help a brother out?
I can send it to you. Hey, we got 63 people online. Anybody got any other ideas? Let me get the cricket soundtrack out.
Well, I think one of the things that I liked very much, Russ, was the awareness and the follow along features. I think that's attracting quite a bit of comment, which is what you're looking for. And I would hope that would be going into the future as well.
It's almost like anybody can do one of those, you know, take some pictures and kind of show it. And, you know, that's a wide open field that people can participate in. I think it's a great idea as well, really. It's probably a little more exciting than putting together 25,000 segments. A shorter one is probably a better thing, like what Al's doing, right? But, you know, we'll look at it at Christmas and see how I'm doing, okay?
Hey, Russ.
Yes.
How about something that's not made out of wood or corian, segmented?
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Here's some other things that, you know, we now have this Zoom. I mean, we got 63 people. Are people enjoying this today? Because I think we can start doing things like have some demonstrations or things like that I think would enliven a lot of stuff up, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea.
So, I mean, even that, you know, this meeting every 2 years, and this time it's every 3 years, for me is too far. It's too few and too far between, right? And it's, I think we started doing a board meeting with Zoom, and it's just, it's so much more enjoyable, you know, seeing people and talking face to face and stuff. So I really think there's a lot of potential in this platform here. And again, if people were to come up with, hey, we'd love to see, hey, Jerry Bennett do his presentation on his SegEasy thing, right? Maybe there's a way we can get Jerry to come out of retirement and do that, or Al do his texturing, right? We've got all kinds of people that, you know, we can put a request out, or, you know, run the flag up and see if they salute, and we can set things up like that. I think it's we can have a lot more fun than we're having now.
The show and tell that you had tonight went many different directions, and I learned a lot just from the side discussions. I really thought that was great.
Right? It's like endless what you can do and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Is it too late?
It's true. And another example of something to do would be show how to use an indexing wheel for those of us that have never done it.
Is it too late to ask a question? Because it was mentioned early on about one way to keep a piece from separating that's flat is to glue to plywood. And I'm just questioning, I guess many of you saw what I made, and I'm a little concerned now that this cribbage board is going to fall apart in due time. And would most people recommend that I glue it to a piece of plywood, maybe a 1/4 inch to keep it from separating?
You know, being an interesting thing for that, Dennis, is to take it and resaw it and give it a little half turn. And all of a sudden it's laminated. It's brick laid.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Russ.
You see, if you cut that vertically, right there, and then turned it 1/4 turn, just lap it all. That's segmented all the way through? Is that what that is?
Yes, it's every ring is segmented, other than the rings for the counting. That's just one piece that I used epoxy for the black circles.
Right. So people are talking about, you know, if you took let's say a star and you cut it in half, you resawed it and then gave it just a small twist so your segments are actually overlapping each other. There's your brick lay. You got the reinforcement.
Okay.
Can you show us the bottom of that thing? Just let us see the bottom.
So the bottom's flat, but I had to use more. I had some, this is the top. But this is the bottom, and there's a little more epoxy and to fill it in, but it's 9/16 thick. But that's the bottom.
The reason I wanted to see the bottom is it looks like the very middle is thinner. And I'm somewhere in my gallery, you'd see I've made a lot of clocks, and I actually thin out the middle to less than 1/4 of an inch, and I recess the clock mechanism in there. And it being so thin,
This centerpiece comes out, and I was going to glue it in. I had 4 different types of centerpieces. I didn't know which one I liked best, but this is, and I haven't glued it in yet. But
leave it out forever, and you won't.
Well, but is there some belief that all the segmented pieces will split in due time with temperature, with the weather?
Well, I made about 4 or 5 years ago, I made about 5 or 6 clocks that are basically similar to your inside piece there without the cribbage board.
Right.
And they've all been fine. None of them have split or separated or anything.
Good to know. Well, fingers crossed. Okay, I'll just, if I see it starting to split, maybe then I can try laminate something on, or we'll see. All right, thank you for the input.
I think leaving that centerpiece loose probably reduces the possibility of it splitting.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Russ, I wasn't quite catching your idea. You're talking about sawing the thing right through the middle, like a 12-inch deep cut.
Yep. Resaw it and then just give it a slight twist. So now you're actually got your segments are actually brick laid. They're overlapping. Your joints are, got a glued background.
Yeah, I get you now.
And with that common edge around the outside, it's the one color. So
yeah,
maybe
but
you get away with
there's
that.
no way I'm not good enough. There's no way I can saw that.
I gotta argue with you, Dennis. You're that good. All right, just saying. I know you got that.
Try that. I'd like to see Russ try that.
Well, I'm going to send it. I'll send it to Pete Markham.
Mark Adams could do it. I can't, but.
Well, Dennis, version 2 is coming up. I can see it.
Yep.
Now I've got 2 more sons, but it was problem. It's first flat piece I've ever segmented, and it was mentally and process very challenging for me anyway.
Well, I remember that. It's an outstanding piece. Your whole alignment was just incredible. It's a beauty.
No, thank you, Russ.
So I think generally, if we were to try to set up some kind of demonstrations and stuff, it would probably be, Al, with our Zoom, we got the package where there's no problem with, we could have everybody in the club join, and we have that size, right? Pretty much.
We have unlimited time, and the package we have is limited to 100 people, but we can upgrade just like we did for this meeting.
Right. So I mean, we can, it's you don't have to worry about filling up a room, because we can all do stuff from home, and we can get. If we talk nicely to people, we can probably get, we have world-class segmenters here that can, put on a show for us. And I'm sure they'll be willing to, because they all love to share. So I think that's one of the things that we can increase participation in. And maybe the word of that gets out, and all of a sudden we get more members. So we're always trying to get a bigger membership and, bigger, better club. One thing I would say is that for a lot of our newer members, it's a pleasure to see them participating. So some of our older members could take a lesson in that. And it's not hard to give a shout out. You see a bowl you like, just tell them, hey, great looking bowl. Just something like that is, it really is rewarding for you and the people that did the work. So I don't know I can't say too much more.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
As a fairly new turner, and a segmenter, I would like to see this happen more frequently. And I'd also like to see some how-tos, since I'm fairly new and I get stuck in a lot of situations. And I think it's just a great idea, this Zoom, and I think tonight's meeting was superb. I learned quite a bit just in the short time that I've been listening. Thank you.
Okay, guys, one thing to remember, first of all, is that we do have a Facebook page, and all of the photos of the week are posted on that Facebook page. And along with that, we have a Instagram page, and both of those can be accessed from our homepage on the web. But this meeting that we are having right now will be the first one that will be posted on our YouTube page. We've got a couple of posts on there from Tom Lohman. And if we've got anybody else that is willing to share some of their YouTube videos, we'll post those there. So it's all about sharing, and we're doing a pretty good job on that. And this is excellent. I'm really enjoying this.
You know, one other thing I would add is that the symposium, God willing, with this COVID thing, is scheduled for next year. And, you know, the board could use some help. So if there's we would love to set up some committees, and maybe some of our members can join and, you know, help do a few things. It's just going to improve the experience of the symposium. So if there's anybody out there that's retired, no, there's probably none of those, that's got free time, well, they'd be segmenting if they did. Well, you know, we always put the shout out to get people to, you know, help out by joining a committee. And we really haven't made too many committees because the interest hasn't been there. So if anybody's willing to step up and help something like that, you know, it's just everybody's gonna get rewarded by it. So it's sort of like you give a little bit of your time and it's gonna make a difference. So.
The suggestion I would have, I've been program director of our local club for a while. And one thing that I found, it's kind of tough to find someone at times that wants to do a full-blown demonstration, but I started a tips and tricks section where everybody has an opportunity to share maybe a 5-minute tip about a particular tool or technique. And we had a lot of people step forward that never would do a demonstration. Well, some of those same people now realize that I can talk to this group and I'm not intimidated. And now they're doing full demonstrations. So those little tips and tricks sessions might be a possibility for a Zoom meeting as well. I know I sure get a lot out of these little suggestions that we share together.
That's a great idea. I appreciate that.
That'd be a great session at one of our upcoming meetings. Another thing I've noticed a lot of clubs are starting to do, it seems to be happening more now that we're all meeting virtually, but virtual shop tours. I'm hearing more and more local clubs do virtual shop tours. And, you know, I think probably everybody has a lot of homegrown things that we've made in our shop that others would like to see. And so it might be fun if somebody wants to volunteer to take 5 or 10 minutes and walk around their shop and show some of the unique things that they're doing, or jigs or fixtures that you've made. You know, it'd be fun to see the environment each of us works in.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Agreed.
I'd just like to say thank you for putting this on. I'm a relatively new segment turner and wood turner. I've never been able to be part of anything like what has happened here tonight. I'm just, I'm pretty blown away, and I'm real appreciative, so thank you.
Great. Hope it's the first of many.
As do I.
Another topic that might be considered is, how about goofs? Things that people have tried that have blown up.
That's a great idea. Had one of those today.
Look in my gallery and you'll see one.
I have a name for that segment. Don't try this at home.
Right.
Well, if you're Jerry, that's just a gateway to another interesting piece, right? So is there really ever a goof, right? You know, your plans change.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity to enhance and figure out another way to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there also the possibility to talk about safety issues, things that happen in the shop that you would not have expected.
Yeah, that's a good one, Dennis.
Ross, a while back, Steve had an episode of talking about dust in the shop. I think that might be a good topic.
Yep.
I was Dr. Dust for a while there. Yep.
Hey, how many of us have the dust detector thing now? Because of you, Steve. It's all your fault. Mine's collecting dust right now.
Still use mine all the time. It's always giving me surprises. So.
What's the dust detector?
Yeah, what is that?
It's a particle counter. You can buy a, not a lab level, but a kind of home use particle counter. It'll tell you how much dust is floating around in your workshop, and it'll scare you. It kind of flashes lights at you. Depending on which one you get, they'll flash lights at you when it gets to a dangerous level, and it'll really scare you when you turn the thing on, because you'll find out, oh, I'm really living in a very unhealthy environment in my workshop, and it'll get you to turn on those overhead filters that are noisy and all that kind of thing. So they're pretty convincing to get you
Who
to be a
sells
little
them?
safer. There's a bunch of different brands I get. I think mine's called a Dylos or something, or some brand like that. I think you can get them on Amazon. I know, Al, you had another one that you were kind of touting probably 6 months ago now. I can't remember what make
I
that
forgot
was.
the brand name. I know some people said they had some quality issues. Mine works fine, but I don't remember the brand. But
You look for particle
I
detector
wear my
or
mask
what?
a lot more often.
It's a temp top.
If you go back to the forum, there's
Gerald's holding it up.
Yeah.
Temp top.
And it's on the forum?
Can you hold that up again?
I had two of them and neither of them worked, so I sent them both back. But one thing I did do, I have an overhead air cleaner. I rewired it so when the shop lights come on, it's on all the time. You can't shut it.
Same thing here. After that discussion, I got an overhead air cleaner. So, I mean, things like this are good for guys like us, right?
But remember who's between your source of dust and the filter. So this is what I use.
Yes. Again, we could have a great discussion about that looking face to face. It's a serious thing because a lot of people are getting bad lungs from, years of exposure. It's just like smoking cigarettes. That's what smoke is particles in your lungs. And we're in here feeding ourselves all the time if you don't protect yourself, you're ruining, breathing is pretty fun for me. I don't know.
It's not fun to have to carry an oxygen tank with you all the time. I knew two guys in the Houston club that did that.
Yeah.
Well, some of the woods have will actually give you allergies or rashes. So if you're breathing that stuff, it's even worse. It's in your lungs and it's doing the same thing inside of your lungs. So it's bad stuff.
Yep.
Actually, allergy is not bad because you know it right away, but it's the other type that does physical damage, just like asbestos. You don't know until it's too late.
Yep.
I'd like, before we leave, I'd like to point out something that you may not have become aware of. The segmenters in the past was kind of a niche type thing. That's not the case anymore. Segmenting is becoming more and more mainstream. And I'm kind of in a unique position to see that. We've been talking to people so far. We're, I think, 27 countries that are learning how to segment and do stuff like that. So you guys are really on the cutting edge of the future. And no longer is segmenting a niche thing. It's becoming more and more mainstream. And so I think this club is going to get bigger and bigger and more exciting.
Jerry, this is Bernie from Australia. I just wanted to say thank you for today. I don't know how many other Australians there are, but it is very difficult in Australia to, because segmenting is not well known. You see it occasionally around in the shows, but however, I've been a member now, I think now for 6 or 7 years now of your association, and I found it out of pure interest because I got bored with just turning bowls and turning pepper grinders and all that sort of thing. However, I just want to say I have learned so much from you guys by being a member of the association. However, I would love to see a lot more demonstrations of different techniques of segmenting and how you go about doing certain designs and things like that, which would be absolutely fantastic, because I did contact, I saw a bowl that was done by, what's his name I can't think of his name, from from the Lakes anyway, or you were in America. He had segments of a bowl that were all side on to a bowl, and how that was done, and I was just fascinated by it. The woods in Australia are beautiful. However, I did try it, and it was relatively successful, but I wouldn't dare show you guys because I'd be embarrassed, okay? However, just to say thank you, and I love the concept of Zooming, and I love the concept of more and more of Zooms, so we can learn a lot more, and also try and get your experts to actually show us how to do certain designs, okay? Many designs, there are so many designs, and it's just fascinating to see. Thank you.
So glad you could join us,
Bernie,
Bernard.
I just wanted to make a comment. You said you didn't want to post this piece because it was a failure. I'm going to challenge you to say you should post it, and challenge the rest of the members to help you make the next one better. That's what we're all about.
Yep, that's what we are about.
Thank you, Al. Thank you. But I don't know, are there many other Australians members of the Segmenting Association, your association?
I know you're not the only one, but we'd have to look up the names.
Thank you.
I would like to say that while we got Jerry on the line, what an amazing contribution he's made that makes segmenting possible for so many people with the sled, the Seg Easy sled. You know, he's taken the challenge of cutting segments. He's taken the challenge out of it, really, and it's you know, when you start seeing the proliferation of segmenting, he's one of the huge reasons why that's happened. I can't say how much he's meant to the whole trade, you know, just by that, just making that thing.
Wow.
Totally agree. But there's a correction that I like to make, called wedgie sled, not Seg Easy sled. They're two different things.
Well, you know, I suffer from CRS, right, Andy? I can't remember shit, so, you know, I think everybody knows what I'm saying, though, right?
Well, it's actually, Andy is responsible for the wedgie sled.
Oh, okay.
Well, I had a CNC machine, and he asked me to make him some kind of a sled to where he could cut segments and an adjustable sled. And I had figured this out two or 3 years before. And I said, well, I'll make you a sled, but it will not be what you expect.
All right.
But I gave him the sled, but it took him several months before he actually tried it. Right, Andy?
No, it was actually 2 years.
Oh. Andy has to
The old habits die hard, right?
Andy has to warm up to things.
Right.
Well, but you have to admit, it's a little challenge to use the wedgie sled to cut your segments for your feature ring.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Well, how do you do it? Or you don't do it? You don't.
When
do
was
it.
the last time you saw me do a feature ring? Right.
Yeah. That's why it took me 2 years to figure it out.
All I know is I'm cutting 144 segments to a ring, and the only way I'm doing that is because of the Seg Easy sled.
You bet. You bet.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's a great tool. Great tool.
Well, I tell you what, the first segmented vessel that I ever saw was done by Andy Chen about 20-something years ago. And it blew me away, absolutely blew me away. And I started going to some meetings that he had at his home and met some other segmenters and all of that. And I just got absolutely hooked, not only with segmenting, but the people involved. And Andy was willing to share everything he knew with me. And so when I came up with the wedgie sled, I told Peggy, I said, we're going to give this away. We're going to give this to the segmenters. It's theirs. And I went online and I tried to find triangles that had all these special degrees, and no one makes them. I thought, well, we're going to have to make them ourselves, you know. And that's how it all got started. I had no interest in making triangles and all of that, you know, but it's worked out very well because I can afford to buy a lathe if I want to, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But the whole thing got started because Andy wanted a better sled than what he was doing. So
It's all Andy's fault.
you can blame Andy for all of this.
Well, again, it's revolutionized segmenting. It's a brilliant thing.
Exactly.
One of my favorite things in segmenting was watching you and Malcolm spar with each other at, I don't know if it was San Antonio or maybe Tahoe, you know, because he's the traditionalist with the chop saw and you're cutting everything with the table saw, right? And it was just brilliant watching that go down.
Well, he's easy. Don't tell him I said that.
Well, he's never gonna admit that he's got a Seg Easy sled either, is he?
Where is he? I'm surprised he's not here today.
Yeah. Him and what do we have? Another 400 people too. But you know what? This is the first one. People are going to get word that this was a pretty successful thing, and hopefully we'll get way more participation.
I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah.
I think this is great. I mean, this is about Zoom is about the only thing that's coming out of this pandemic that's positive as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I got a glimpse of retirement, and I like it a lot.
Hey, Russ, it's everything it's cracked up to be.
Yep. Okay. Right.
Well, Jerry, you talked about segmenting becoming mainstream. The only reason that it's becoming mainstream is because of you and your wedgie sled, and in life easier for us. I would not be doing 96 or 144 or 120 segments in the world if it wasn't for that. So I I gotta really thank you for your contribution to our hobby. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I don't know what to say. I just know that I guess it was a gift from God. I don't know where it came from, but I did know that I had to share it. So I'm glad.
Well, that's the gift, right?
Glad
you know,
you
because
did.
you sharing it teaches everybody else to share too, right? So everybody's sharing. I don't know anybody in the segmenting business that has any secret to keep, right? You got a question about how they did something, boom, they answer it right away. So,
well, one of the questions I get, you know, everybody's concerned about copying, you know, don't copy this, don't copy that. I'm totally the opposite. You see one of my pieces, get after it.
yeah, right.
I'll even show you how to do it.
Right. That'd be a fun afternoon. Or 3 months or 6 months.
But I have to credit Andy. He's helped me so much over the years. He set the quality bar way over my head, and I had to get a ladder to get to it. But you'll never believe how good this man is.
Too bad my camera doesn't have very high resolution. You can't see me turning red.
I didn't know. Well, but anyway, Andy's always been very free in sharing, and there were some other guys, a guy named George Cadawar that was a segmenter. He's retired now on Austin Lake, but he was a physics professor, hobnobbed with
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, Hawking and his entourage was at his house, and he actually gave me tickets so I could go see Hawking. But George was a big segmenter, and we had several segmenters going around Andy's house, and I picked up so much there. It was unreal.
Right on.
So guys, do you think we should cap this at 2 hours and call it a day?
Sounds like a good idea, but before we do, I'd like to get some feedback from everybody on when we should do this again. It's from the feedback I've heard, it sounds like probably sooner than rather than later. So
Well, I think that you should do this at least once a month.
I like it. I like it. I like hanging out with you guys.
How about every quarter?
Yeah.
I like every month.
Every month.
Well, this meeting will be posted on our YouTube channel. So I am recording this, and it'll be posted.
Is that a private channel or is that public?
That is public. It's available to anybody.
Okay, thanks.
What I would suggest initially is to not set a fixed period of time, but put things together for the event, you know, for the meeting, and then do it when you have, you know, something to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yep, I agree.
Great.
Doesn't Zoom have the ability to have you vote on an issue if you want to raise it up?
We can send out an email. That's probably a better, because a lot of people have already dropped off the call. A lot of people are dropping off right now as we're speaking.
Well, I think one thing we can do as a group is the people that enjoyed this is to share that online on the forum, and maybe that'll promote interest in our next one for people that didn't join this one.
Yep.
If you've got a moment, you can just drop a note and say, hey, enjoyed it, right?
Yep.
For some of us,
Anybody that wants to view this, if you go to our homepage, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a tab for YouTube, and I'll be posting that probably tomorrow.
Did somebody,
Thanks, Bob.
did somebody say that you're on Instagram too?
Yes, sir. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
For some of us who don't use Facebook regularly, how do you get to the site on Facebook?
Right from the homepage, there's a link for YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram right up in the top bar.
Well, guys, I'm going to
Okay.
say sayonara.
All right. Well, thanks, Jerry. And thanks for everybody for coming. I know I personally had a great time. I learned a lot too, and it was great putting a lot of faces to the names. And all I can say is we're going to do this again soon. So we'll get an agenda put together and get the word out.
Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Al and Bob
Thank you very much.
and Russ
Everybody be safe.
and Ron. Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good
Good night, Russ. Good night, Al.
Good day in Australia.